I always have to take a deep breath, pause a moment whenever we have this gospel, because it is challenging. The disciples often ask Jesus, how can we do this? You might remember when Peter said, so like if somebody offends me, Jesus, am I supposed to forgive them once or twice? 7 even? He thought that was pretty shocking, to propose 7. No one would do that. And Jesus said, well, try 70 times 7. He's always encouraging us to go beyond what we think our capabilities are, because the grace of God working in us has this power. It's amazing what can happen. The early church fathers and mothers used a word we hardly ever hear today. They say that what happens to us as we get deeper and deeper in love with God and love with Christ, we are divinized, made like God, participating in the life of God. That's amazing. That's transformation. That's the fullness of life that Jesus was talking about. And that's what it means to be a Christian, to put on the mind of Christ. And as we saw in today's reading from the Hebrews, the one who consecrates, God, and the ones who are consecrated, us, we have the same source, according to Hebrews. So we are the expressions of God in this world. So what's God look like? How does God act? Well, we call it a Trinity. That means there's some kind of love going on in the heart of God that makes it an exchange of love. And so this, I think, is what Jesus was saying. This is the ideal to which we aspire through marriage, is that we're enacting that Trinitarian love and giving and receiving and the joy, the ecstasy that can come from that. And it takes the form of children. And you notice how people are always thrilled when a child is born. It's just, you can't help yourself. It's just wondrous. It's beautiful. Many things in this world wind down, but you'll notice the amazement and the joy that comes with the new life. It thrills people. This is the real dynamic of what it means to be part of a community, a part of a family. And now, part B. We know that some of the most damaging things that can happen to a person sometimes happen in the context of a family, a marriage. We know that there's domestic violence. We know there's abuse. And we have a moral obligation, for the sake of the dignity of the ones who are in danger, to change that situation and make sure people are safe, make sure people are respected. It's interesting to me, there's a guy named Tim Shriver. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he says he and some other people did some research, and they found out what breaks up most marriages is something called contempt. He also has pointed out that that's what's characterizing, unfortunately, much of our political life in our country today. We have contempt for one another. It breaks up not only families, it can break up a country. It can break up a neighborhood. It can break up families. Contempt. So he's really working on something he calls the dignity index, which means learning how to respect and be kinder and more compassionate and humbler and listen to one another, so that we don't slip into that contempt that can break up our lives. So, these are the two things we're dealing with in today's readings. I'd like to return, though, to part A, the love that is so powerful. It cannot be extinguished in this world. Once it gets going, it has a steamroller effect. We always say charity begins at home. Yes. And it doesn't stop there. We have a God without borders, a Christ without borders. The love just is everywhere, all the time. And it can, as we say, renew the face of the earth. But it takes us to pull that off, because we're Christ's hands and feet in this world. And as we become divinized, we become servants. That's what I'd like to propose today. One way of serving this beautiful world that's charged with the grandeur of God is to reach out to the poorest of the poor all over the world, teaming up with people, for example, like Cross-Catholic Outreach, the priests and the nuns and the lay missionaries who are dedicated to transforming the lives of the poor in their communities materially and spiritually for the honor and glory of God. And those two words are important, spiritual and material. Yes, we need the gospel. Yes, we need the good news. Yes, we need the Mass. And we need food on our tables. We need roofs over our heads. Many people have neither. So, how can we be part of that? Well, we say we work with the poorest of the poor. What's that mean? What's that translate to? Well, let's say if 8 of us stood in front of the altar here, each of the 8 economically would represent about 1 billion of our neighbors. And tough as it is here in the United States, I don't want to downplay that, but tough as it is, I have to say we're all in the top 1 billion economically here at St. Monica's. So for each one of us, yeah, we have our struggles, and there are 7 other folks out there who are struggling more than you and I are. We try to concentrate on what we might call economically the bottom 1 billion here. These folks, our brothers and sisters, are living on less than $2 a day. So you just think about it. I sometimes do this mental trick in my mind. I think, okay, if I have $700 or $800 to work with for the coming 12 months, what will my life look like? Well, I'll tell you. On about January 20th of this year, I would have been homeless. There would have been nothing left for shelter, nothing left for food, nothing left for transportation. That's it. Now, when I say 1 billion, I have to say I'm tempted sometimes to think, well, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't put a dent in that. I'm sorry these people are in trouble, but it's not my problem. Then I try putting on the mind of Christ. I think about, wait a minute, what does it mean to be divinized? What does it mean to be transformed in Christ? What's that look like? And then I think about that day. Remember when there were 5,000 people out there. He's talking to them. It's the middle of the day, and he realizes, whoa, they're hungry. So he looks at his disciples. I always wonder what they thought. I wonder if they got a little nervous when he would look at him in that way, and he says, well, there's 5,000 people out here. They're hungry. What do we have? And they're thinking, oh, no. Well, we've got a couple of fish. We've got some bread here, but it's nothing. And what's his attitude? He says, well, let's try it. Let's try it. And what happens? Everybody's fed. Now, I don't know how that works. It's a miracle. But I do know that when you set love into this world, it multiplies. Love can't turn in on itself. It's always spreading out. It's a contagion. And that seems to me to be something that you and I need to embrace. That's reality. That's the real world. This is not some kind of weird, otherworldly, dream time. This is the truth. And you can't wipe it out. The whole weight of the Roman Empire fell down on that young rabbi, crucified him. And it should have been over. His disciples, what did we do? We fled, except for the women. And I remember a movie I saw recently in which Pontius Pilate, a few days after Jesus had been crucified, looks out over the city, and he's feeling pretty good about himself. He says, well, I'm sure we won't hear from them again. He was so sure that the weight and the power and the military prowess of the Roman Empire, there's no chance for these Jews. There's no chance for that silly rabbi who's talking about love. And yet look what happened. Dante once said, he's an Italian poet, he said that love is what moves the sun and the other stars. This is not weak. This is
a powerful force in the world. And to participate in that is just a beautiful thing. So that's my main message. It's not that difficult for us to make a little effort to make a huge difference in people's lives when you infuse that effort with love. If you look in your pews, you'll see there's this brochure, and I'd ask you to just grab one and look at the page that says Make an Impact, because this always encourages me. I always find it a little surprising. $50 can provide over 300 meals for kids. That may sound crazy, but I've seen this. I visited a school that we support in western Belize, right on the border with Guatemala. The school is called Monte Carmelo, Mount Carmel. The town's called Benque Viejo. Now, you know and I know the way to break that cycle of poverty is through education. That's why the school is there. But we noticed that some of these kids really weren't learning at the rate you would hope and expect. They were enthusiastic, they were eager, but they were also hungry. If you don't have enough nutrients in your diet, you can't concentrate on study. So now, thanks to folks like you, we've got this lunch program in the school, and we know at least once a week, 5 days a week, these kids get a good meal. Some beans and tortillas, some fruits and vegetables, and then they can learn. So you see, these things are all connected. This is all integrated. Yes, we need education, but you also need food. $50 is a miracle. $92 can deliver a lifetime of safe drinking water to a family of 4. You'd be surprised how many of our neighbors woke up this morning wondering if they're going to get water today. And if they do get it, is it going to make them sick? That's a question a lot of people are dealing with today. I should maybe tell a little about how I got involved in this, because it's related to this. For some crazy reason, when I was a kid, I'm probably still in junior high school, I had this idea I wanted to become an exchange student. So I grew up in a town called Kokomo, Indiana, and we moved to Arizona when I was 16, but I kept this dream. I was studying French at the time. I'm not exactly sure why. Es más útil hablar español. You know, it's a lot more useful to speak Spanish, but I didn't know that then. And I'm an old man now. Who knows what I was thinking, but it might have been something like, well, I'm studying French. Maybe they'll send me to France this summer. Maybe I'll be drinking wine and meeting beautiful French girls. I don't know. Can't say. But Mom calls me one day at school. She said, Dave, I found out where you're going this summer. I'm so excited. I said, Mom, where? And she said, Afghanistan. And I am sorry, it's embarrassing to say, my first question was, well, where is it? Unfortunately, you and I know where it is now. And it's not because it's this beautiful place we want to visit. It's been over 40 years now. It's been bloodshed, chaos there. So little did I know, I was there in a kind of golden age. It was stable. The king was still in power. This Muslim family took me in. They were wonderful. It was beautiful, life-changing. And I had never seen that kind of poverty in my life. Not in Kokomo, Indiana, not in Scottsdale, Arizona. What did it look like? I couldn't believe how many kids died before they ever reached the age of 5. Why? They didn't have water to drink. They didn't have clean water. They get parasites, you get diarrhea, you die. And I was surprised later in life to discover this is not uncommon. I visited, for example, with Cross, a village called Chinandega in Nicaragua, and they had no good water there. They were too close to a volcano. So up until recently, and it's often kids who have to do this, they had to walk for hours a day to get decent water, quite a distance from the village. And some of these places where kids are trying to get water are hard to get to. They can be a little dangerous. But if you're going to live, this is what it takes. Now, there's a couple of wells right in the village. The kids takes a few minutes to get the water they need for the day. And that leaves them free to go to school. So $92, that's a miracle. It really is. $2,500, that sounds like a lot of money, but it'll get a good start. You think about what would a house cost us, your dream house here. Well, for $2,500, you can get well along on a house for someone, for example, who's lost their home in a hurricane. I met a woman also in Nicaragua who had lost her house. It was been 10 years ago. She'd been wiped out by a hurricane. She was living, as were a lot of other local people, along the edge of the city dump and picking through the garbage to see if they could find something that they could maybe sell so they could put some food on the table. Now, I say table, there's probably no such thing. There would be like tar paper walls and maybe, if they're lucky, some, plywood for a roof. So I visited her after we'd built this house, and she was so thrilled. She has a tin roof, which means it's actually dry in there when it rains. Wonderful. And a concrete floor, which means the kids aren't walking around in the mud when it rains. It's actually dry from top to bottom. She feels like the luckiest person in the world. She realizes she's not forgotten, and that there is a presence in this world called love that reaches out to the far ends of the earth and touches people who are feeling a little hopeless, and it transforms their lives. So, as you probably guessed, I'm asking for help. You see there is an envelope here. If you could help today, just stick a check in there, stick some cash in there, or write down your credit card number, and you can give it to me after Mass. I'll just be outside basking in your cool air after Mass. And you can give it to me, or think about it, pray about it, and then later in the week you can just tear off the top, seal the envelope. It does get to the people who need it, and that's important for you to know. I realize this is a sacrifice. It's not easy, but you'll see over 94% of what you give goes to the program services. So we're going to be careful with your gift. If there's something you'd like us to pray about, please write that in here. It's a big part of our vocation to pray with you and for you and your needs. We'd love to have your name and your address. We promise we'll not sell it to anybody else, but we would like to keep you informed about this beautiful work. And thank you for your help. So I hope you'll consider that. Also, if you get a chance, take the time to check out our website, crosscatholic.org, to learn more about who we are, how we operate, where we work. And I think you'll see that this is a really wonderful thing to participate in a world that is hungry and thirsty for the presence of love, the presence of kindness in their midst. Thank you. God bless.